WLBT, 3 on your side. WLBT News starts now.
Thursday morning, here's a look at some big stories we're tracking this morning at 5. Today, lawmakers will gather in Jackson for a special session. We're on your side with what they plan to talk about.
And legal sports betting comes to Vicksburg. A casino there will be the latest to join the game today. Those stories and others coming up, but we begin with First Alert traffic and weather together. Take a live look outside at I-55 and High Street in Jackson, where traffic's moving along fine. No problems here. Overnight construction is wrapping up, so all the lanes will be back open here shortly. We're glad you're with us. I'm Wilson Stripling.
And I'm Cheryl Lassiter in for Symphony. And we've got good news weather-wise. The humidity is down, and it really makes a difference.
Yes, most definitely. You know, just walking outside yesterday, yeah, it's still high. Yeah, it's August in Mississippi. But the thing is like, when you just factor in a little bit of a north breeze, it feels so much nicer comparative to what it could be. And unfortunately, what it could be is coming back soon. All right, so just enjoy the lower humidity while you still can. Here's a live look outside from our sky cam on top of the Regions Bank building here in downtown Jackson. All is nice and quiet this morning. Temperatures working our way from the upper 60s to around 70 this morning, on our way to the upper 80s this afternoon, similar to yesterday, with a light north breeze around 5 to 10 miles per hour. But again, the winds will start to snap around to the south, and that will usher in the warmer and more moist air. We'll take a look at what to expect as we head towards the upcoming weekend and beyond, and your 7-day forecast coming up in 10 minutes.
New this morning, tornado victims are getting a warning about cleaning debris from their property. Madison police say if you hire a contractor to remove debris, the contractor is responsible for taking it to the proper landfill. Also, if a contractor is making home repairs, they're required to get a permit from the city. The Sandalwood neighborhood was hit by an EF1 tornado about a week ago. And in this morning's Most Wanted, Jackson police need your help looking for these men. They are wanted for breaking into the Animal Rescue Fund on Mays Street last week. Officers say the burglars took several items, including animal medicine. If you have information that could lead to an arrest, call Crime Stoppers.
Elsewhere in the country, the man at the center of Florida's controversial Stand Your Ground law will be back in court today. Michael Draka is hoping a judge will reduce his $100,000 bond. He is charged with manslaughter in the shooting death of an unarmed African-American man outside a convenience store in Clearwater. Marquise McLaughlin pushed Draka to the ground after Draka questioned him about why he was using a handicapped parking space. Draka then shot McLaughlin, but he was not arrested until the state's attorney general pressed charges earlier this month. Police are looking for those responsible for a deadly home invasion in Vicksburg. The victim's been identified as 25-year-old Jasmine Nicole Adams. The home invasion happened a little before 2 Wednesday morning at her home on Lake Hill Drive. Her boyfriend and children were there at the time, but they were not injured. According to the boyfriend, Adams heard a knock at the door, and the suspects identified themselves as police. As she walked to the door, they kicked it in and started shooting.
It is, because nothing just really goes on this end of town. Like, we quiet, everybody keep to themselves. So just to hear it on this side is a major shock.
It's sad that people resort to this type of violence. We are working to curb it, but it's a work in progress.
If you have any information that could help solve the case, call Crime Stoppers.
In North Mississippi, a grand jury will hear a case against 2 Illinois men accused of luring a 14-year-old boy away from his Olive Branch home. DeSoto County Prosecutor Luke Williamson says Juan Andrade and Jason St. Aubin waived their preliminary hearing and sent the case to a grand jury in exchange for bond reductions. They face kidnapping and conspiracy charges after being accused of taking John Aubrey Peel III using a popular gaming app, Discord. It's unclear when the grand jury will meet. Happening today, lawmakers back in Jackson for a special session. There are 2 items on the agenda: funding for infrastructure and creation of a state lottery. The infrastructure portion would entail using proceeds from the internet sales tax, sports betting, and fees on electric and hybrid vehicles. The lottery portion would bring the game of chance to Mississippi to generate more cash for infrastructure needs. The session begins at 10. 3 on your side will be there.
Also this morning, the State Board of Education will have a special called meeting to consider resetting the baseline scores for establishing accountability grades for schools that go up to 12th grade. The change would address the lack of comparability to growth scores over the past few years. The Commission on School Accreditation and the Department of Education's Technical Advisory Committee recommended the reset. President Trump is downplaying his legal exposure after Michael Cohen implicated him during his trial over campaign finance violations.
Some of the president's allies are choosing to wait and see what happens. Others are seizing on the development to advance their own causes. Susan McGinnis reports.
President Trump reacts after his former attorney Michael Cohen tells a judge the president directed him to make hush money payments to 2 women before the 2016 election, a violation of campaign finance law.
My first question when I heard about it was, did they come out of the campaign? Because that could be a little dicey. And they didn't come out of the campaign.
To a barrage of questions from reporters, the White House had one message.
The president said, we've stated many times, he did nothing wrong. There are no charges against him.
At 1 a.m., an unusually early presidential tweet, no collusion, rigged witch hunt. This follows GOP lawmakers who largely ignored Cohen and focused on Russia.
None of them suggested he colluded with the Russians.
None of this has anything to do with the Russians act collusion or meddling in the election.
Democrats see the White House at a crossroads.
We are on the threshold of a constitutional crisis in this country.
Others say this is cause enough to delay confirmation hearings for Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh.
It is unseemly for the President of the United States to be picking a Supreme Court justice who could soon be effectively a juror in a case involving the President himself.
The question now, will special counsel Robert Mueller interview Cohen? What else might he reveal? Talk of impeachment continues here, ultimately a decision to be made by Congress. In Washington, Susan McGinnis, NBC News.
Here in Mississippi, a Vicksburg casino will begin taking bets on sports beginning today. The Riverwalk Casino is the latest casino in the state to start a sports betting operation. It comes after lawmakers passed a measure that made sports betting legal in the state. Officials, including Mayor George Flaggs, will be at a ribbon-cutting ceremony this morning. It's the first casino in the River City to offer sports betting.
Some streets in Clinton are about to close for the Red Brick Road's Music and Arts Festival. Those closures will be in Old Town Clinton beginning this afternoon. 2 stages will be set up on West Leak Street for the 2-day event that begins at 5 tomorrow evening. Stage setup will close portions of Leak Street to through traffic, while Jefferson and Monroe Streets there in Clinton will remain open. Jefferson and Leak Streets will be closed to traffic tomorrow as organizers complete the setup for food trucks and other attractions. 5:07 now. Hurricane Lane getting closer to Hawaii. Hear from that state's governor when we come back. But first, we've got a look at the weather with First Alert meteorologist Patrick Ellis.
And we're starting off fairly quiet this morning across central Mississippi in the upper 60s and lower 70s. Warm spot this morning is the city of Jackson right now, 71 degrees, 67 in McGee, as well as in Crystal Springs right now, 67 for Carthage and Yazoo City, and 69 as you step out the door in Lexington. On our way from where we're starting off this morning in the upper 60s and lower 70s to the lower 80s by noon today, and eventually working our way to the upper 80s before the day is out. The last day of the lower humidity across the region before the heat starts to crank up as we head towards the upcoming weekend. We'll take another look at that and also take a look at Hurricane Lane here in just a minute. Time right now is 5:08 here on this Thursday morning. 5:10 here on this Thursday morning. This is a look from the International Space Station of Hurricane Lane. You can tell that this thing is so massive. A category, when this was taken, about a Category 5 hurricane as it was making its way through the Pacific Ocean. And when we go forward in time here, I mean, this is going to be a very serious situation, even though that the storm is probably not going to be affecting Hawaii directly. They're going to get indirect effects, lots of rainfall. Also, we're talking about wind and also mudslides and storm surge with this storm as it gets closer and closer to the Big Island right now. Here's the core of the system as a Category 4 hurricane right now, moving to the northwest at 7 miles per hour. Winds of 145 miles per hour, gusting as high as 175. And again, it's making its way to the north and west. The core of the system should stay just to the west of the Big Island, and then it will curve back along the island chain. And again, you still are inside that cone, very close to Honolulu, so you get the idea that there is some wiggle room here. But at any rate, you know, the storm system should start to weaken as it starts to make its turn back off towards the west from the north and west. So very interesting to watch this, because again, this is the strongest storm to come this close to the island nation, the island state. And since 1993 or 1994, Hurricane John came very close to this point too. So again, very interesting to watch this. But back at home, it's quiet, and in the Atlantic Ocean, quiet, no problems. We are not expecting anything to come our way over the next little bit as we get going here. Temperatures are in the 60s this morning here in central Mississippi, on our way up into the upper 80s this afternoon. Lots of sunshine as high pressure keeps us nice and mild and dry, but eventually high pressure begins to build a little farther off to the east. Get the return flow off the Gulf of Mexico, and the humid air starts to roll back in here. So eventually we start to see our humidity start to rise from the more tolerable feels that we got right now all the way back up to more of the tropical feel as we head through the next couple of days. A live look outside from our sky cam on top of the Regions Bank building here in downtown Jackson. Right now we're sitting in the upper 60s and lower 70s, and from here working our way again to the upper 80s to near 90 degrees as we head through the afternoon hours for a couple spots, mainly southwest Mississippi could get close to 90. But the bigger story is going to be that lower humidity. We'll drop back to 66 to start off tomorrow morning, and for this time of the year, that's a bargain. We will take that. 91 the high temperature as we head towards Friday, which is about closer to normal. Then all of a sudden, once that humidity starts to roll back in here, it gets hot and it gets humid very quickly. Highs will be in the lower to middle 90s through the weekend. Maybe a chance for a few isolated showers and thunderstorms. A lot of us, though, likely to get away with the weekend dry, but I think if you have the better opportunities for rain, probably south of the I-20 corridor as we head through the next couple of days, even in going into early portions of next week as the humidity levels stick around, and with the overnight low temperatures mainly into lower to middle 70s.